And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Live tropical weather bulletin for June 30th. So, a different tropical weather bulletin this evening because it is actually live, and this is the state of the Atlantic right now, where we have obviously Potential Tropical Cyclone 2, which is not looking much more different than what it has been doing recently. Oh, just ignore that. That's some of the slides that have just come in. That is actually incidentally correct. It's day 30 of Atlantic hurricane season, but the next slide hasn't been updated and it'll say day 40 of the Eastern Pacific, and that's wrong. But anyway, there is the Atlantic right now, and let's take a closer look at the Gulf of Mexico region, looking at that other little system that's just off the coast of Texas. A little bit of convection blowing up on that right now. Over to the Eastern Pacific, you can see what's left of Celia still off to the northwestern side, and that blob in the central part of the ocean there, which is what could be our next cyclone if you don't count 2L, which is likely to end up in the Eastern Pacific. Hurricane watches in effect right now for the coast of Nicaragua, and tropical storm watches for Costa Rica, and tropical storm warnings for Colombia and Venezuela and the ABC Islands. The Western Pacific, imagery takes a little bit to load there. Here it is. What has now been designated 4W in the South China Sea. That was the Philippine name Caloy. And on the eastern side of the Philippines, that other system, 98W, looking pretty decent, and suggestions that it may start to develop pretty soon. So that's something to watch out for. The rapid scan floater in the Western Pacific is currently centered on 4W. There it is right now. Some indications that it may already have tropical storm force winds, but we can't confirm that yet, and it is likely a tropical depression. Looking at the Indian Ocean, not much you can see there, but it's looking very quiet. Sea surface temperatures warming up across the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea, all of the usual areas. We could be in for a doozy of a season, and it's a busy time right now. My name is Nathan Foy, and we'll be going into it in depth with our team, who I'll be introducing shortly. So the sea surface temperature anomalies there, last thing we'll look at before we introduce everyone. South China Sea, way above average, especially further north. The whole subtropical Western Pacific really, well above average. The tropical zone, only a little bit above average. Eastern Pacific is half and half there. Some of it, most of the important areas are below average. And in the Atlantic, well, it's the Gulf that's well above average, Caribbean just slightly, and the main development region moderately. So a lot of things for our team to discover and discuss right now live, and our viewers can also join in with the discussion as we proceed through this tropical weather bulletin this evening. Hello, oh dear, that's the wrong button. Hello, my name is Nathan Foy here in the studio, and you just saw the intro to 413 Sundays because that was the last thing I did. And joining me in the studio is quite a few people. Well, they're not in here with me, but they're there. We have Christian. Good evening. How are you this evening?
I'm alright.
You're showing us a display of everything that's going on right now. All of these potential tropical cyclones. It's there's so many things to look at.
Yeah, there are. We've got quite the what's the word? Quite the activity going on right about now. Pretty much everywhere, really. So
Yep.
we'll start off with the Atlantic over in the top right over here. You've got 2L, which as of right now is a 90-90. Then you've got this thing over here. I'm not sure which one this one is. Someone can probably correct me.
In the Gulf.
In the Gulf, yep. So this thing here is 40/40. I think I want to say this is 95, a 95L in that regard. And then this is just an uninvested AOI currently at 20, uh, the in development region. Again, down in the East Pacific, we've got whoops, I did not mean to click on that one. We've got obviously Celia is down. Celia is no more.
Hmm.
In its
Long
place,
gone.
however, yeah, long gone. I believe I want to say it's 95E. Um, Again, someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Again,
94.
running 94. Okay. I thought that was a 95 somewhere.
There's so many
I don't know.
numbers it can get
There's
It's
confusing.
there's
95L.
way too many.
No, he's looking at
Yeah,
94E now.
I was
yeah,
talking about the 95. The 95 is 95L.
Yes.
yeah. 95 is up here. 94 is down here. Currently, it's 70,
So
70,
many.
all over the dang place. And then over here, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center they have, I believe, 4W. It's very helpfully labeled here, and 98W. 4W, I believe we covered earlier. No, that was no, actually no, that was 2 out we covered. But 4W is in the South China Sea right now, making a beeline to the northwest. 98W, I have no idea
Well, we'll
where that's
cover
going.
we'll cover 4W later. I think most of the early part of tonight's discussion will be about 2L. And Samuel, you are showing us the. Oh, you were showing us National Hurricane Center, but now you're drawing a line. I assume that's the Hurricane Watch Zone.
Yes, it is, and this is for the south, pretty much the southern half of the eastern Nicaragua coast, extending from Sandy Bay, Serpi, going down to about around the border with Costa Rica there. A lot of this is biological reserve, but you can see some coastal cities, including Fruta de Pan and Greytown, out in the southeastern part of the Nicaragua coast. And I also have the cone here that
Yes.
outlines the area. Um, those hurricane watches, actually, that was the hurricane watch zone. Now we have the tropical storm watch zone going up further, a little further into the
Yeah.
Nicaragua coast on the east, and then some of northeastern northeastern Costa Rica coast as well is looking at a tropical storm watch as well. This is most likely going to be, depending on how strong this storm gets, this could include not only rain and wind but storm surge as well. So these are the areas that would be the most at risk for storm surge.
Yeah, potentially. And we're looking at significant amounts of rain over the area as well, as we saw in the last update that we did just a couple of hours ago. Up to and possibly exceeding 10 inches in significant parts of Nicaragua, particularly the border area around Costa Rica. So that's something to be watching out for. Of course, this could still change. Xavier, you're also with us right now. What are you showing? I think you're showing the same thing. Ah,
Uh,
another.
yeah,
Your take on the cone, then, I guess.
so yeah, this is a very strange storm. I've been pretty much tracking this since the beginning of it, and to say this is a strange one, I mean, never did I think that I'd be having to say a storm making landfall in Venezuela twice, pretty much. And then after that, we have the whole situation with southern Nicaragua and Costa Rica getting landfall, which we haven't really seen this area. We've always been covering northern Nicaragua with getting landfalls thanks to Ada and Iota from 2020. Of course, both of them were a lot stronger, but now we're talking about area which hasn't really seen a landfall location since autumn 2016, and that was towards Thanksgiving. So it's not really common to see these Atlantic East Pack crossovers, and the fact that we're going to be seeing an intensification to a hurricane, you said it earlier in the update, but this definitely does remind people of Cesar Douglas in 1996, and it's definitely good reason because, I mean, this is not a normal track, especially for what we've seen this season. Now, eventually it's supposed to get a name. Obviously, there's no chance pre-naming this, given the fact that we have that invest in the Gulf of Mexico that is still a 40/40 shot at becoming something. I have a few other tabs, that one being other things you also kind of covered in your storm update earlier. This was the tropical storm force winds. Of course, ABC Islands and northern Venezuela getting into those 40-50% chances. And then the newest update from the National Hurricane Center did put Nicaragua under those 30 to 40 at maximum right now, but obviously those are inching closer. In terms of hurricane force wind speed, there's not really enough confidence right now. And then, of course, with the 60-mile-an-hour winds, it's been that same thing for the last 24 hours. It's been just this tiny coastal area of Nicaragua that's in that 60-mile-an-hour wind probability, and that's hasn't changed at all in the last 36 hours now.
It does surprise me a bit that it doesn't tally well, that
Yeah.
the 50 knot wind speed probabilities, and yet they're going for a hurricane on day 5.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. But back when they were forecasting hurricane, what I did notice was that basically on the first advisory, they were calling for 75 miles an hour, and they had zero chance of it being zero probabilities on there. It was basically the same image. No areas or regions that had the 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
So it was always skeptical of whether that 75 mile an hour point would stay on the cone, and I guess as of this morning, they did take that off, and now it's back in the Eastern Pacific, strangely. So it's definitely interesting.
Just looking at the satellite imagery right now on my latest display, and that's a suggestion that there's some convection holding right now. Looking good. Towards the center, looking to be rotating a little bit as well. So maybe it's getting even closer to tropic. I mean, how much closer does it have to get before becoming a tropical storm? What are they looking for right now? What stopped them pulling the trigger so far?
Based off of what I read from the NHC discussion from earlier, it's been the same thing really for the last pretty much for a while now. But in fact, what they says is that it's gone backwards, oddly enough. The NHC has said that it takes a more elongated appearance as of late. And the fact that there is still trying to close off a center. So that means the LLC has not been closed based off of recon. So despite the fact it's been trying to get an LLC for the last several days, it still has not managed to do so. Once it does get that LLC, it will be designated as a tropical storm, which is why the NHC specifically said at the end of the first paragraph, the system could make the transition to a tropical cyclone at any time. So it's just a matter of when at this point.
We've also got Raging Weather with us right now, who we've had on a couple of times. Oh, they've just left. Okay, well, so much for the grand intro there. Right then, Samuel, any other thoughts you have on this storm and its forecast?
Well, I did watch some of the trends regarding the storm over the last few days, and the cone and forecast strength has changed quite a bit. For now, the National Hurricane Center is keeping this as a tropical storm until it gets into the East Pacific, where they do forecast it to become a hurricane to the south of Mexico over the East Pacific. Now, keep in mind that, in addition, the National Hurricane Center is going to continue to use the Atlantic name for any storm that crosses into the Eastern Pacific. So, unlike what we had decades ago with probably the most famous being Cesar Douglas, the two-name system has been abolished for quite some time. Actually, the most recent storm to pull off this feat was Hurricane Otto, which formed late in November 2016. Which, if some of you might recognize, is the same naming list that we have this year as well.
Oh God. So parallels being drawn there. If anyone's got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, we're happy to take them on any of the 7 trackable systems that are active right now. I think it is. So whether you've got thoughts on PDC2 or whether you've got something to say about this blob of convection over Invest 95L just off the shore off the coast of Texas, or as I had a comment or two, looking rather decent little thing behind 2L off the coast of South America as well. I think is looking decent there on the latest infrared. To the Westpac shenanigans with the GFS just coming out on the 18Z update, and it's calling for an even further south track for Caloy to strike Hainan, I think it is now, with a pressure in the 950s, and it's only about 2 days away. Whether that happens or not, big question mark. But there's so many things to unpack here tonight. We'll do our best to try and get to all of them. First half is going to be more on the Atlantic. A question or comment from Holy DCE saying Aruba has never had a named hurricane in its entire history. It came close, but it never directly impacted the island. I'll have to take a look at the history books on that one. I'm inclined to agree to an extent, although I'm sure storms will have come close to the extent where it would have been felt there. But as to actual landfalls, it's pretty hard to get a landfall there, that's for sure. Now then, let's throw it back to Christian's screen because you've got everything loaded up there whilst I take a look at Aruba's hurricane history and see what I can find. So yeah, they've never had an actual landfall. The closest, though, a storm in 1886, a Category 2, August, passed within... That is not far at all. Must be within 10 miles of landfall at Category 2. And then there are storms to the south of it. Basically, a storm in 1892 in October, which was pretty much in 2L's position right now, but as a Category 2. So that's another fascinating one. These are all ancient history. And in 1877, September storm was in pretty much the same place as 2L right now. So some baffling old storms that we're competing with there. But after that, you're looking at things like Felix, which was about 40 miles north of Aruba. And it was at that point a rapidly intensifying Category 2 on its way to Category 4 status. But in terms of this system right now, 40 mile per hour winds, so it does have tropical storm force winds. It just doesn't have the prerequisites required for tropical storm status. Let's read out some of the information as we go back to some satellite imagery. And the latest as of 8 p.m, which is now, or at the start of this hour, the centre of the disturbance passing south of Aruba and Curacao is the headline. Still 40 miles per hour, pressure 1009 millibars. Tropical storm warning for Bonar has been discontinued. Hurricane watch for Nicaragua Costa Rica border to Laguna de Perlas. Tropical storm warning for Curacao, Aruba, the coast of Venezuela from the Peninsula de Paraguana westward to the Colombia-Venezuela border, including the Gulf of Venezuela, and the coast of Colombia from the Colombia-Venezuela border westward to Santa Marta. A tropical storm watch for Limon, Costa Rica, northward to the Nicaragua-Costa Rica border, and north of Laguna de Perlas to Sandy Bay, Serpi, Nicaragua. So a lot of things going on there. Rainfall is probably still the highest risk from this storm. The National Hurricane Center say that it's expected to produce heavy rain across the ABC Islands to portions of northern Venezuela and northeast Colombia through Thursday morning, then across Nicaragua and Costa Rica by Friday. North central Venezuela 4 to 6 inches. The ABC Islands, northwestern Venezuela and northern Colombia 3 to 5 inches. Nicaragua and Costa Rica 3 to 7 inches, isolated high totals around 10. I think it could break that even. And of course, tropical storm conditions probably occurring on those islands right now, the ABC Islands, even though it's not actually a tropical storm. It's quite hard to, it doesn't really matter much, but people are bound to be getting confused in the general public about why isn't this a tropical storm, why isn't it named, what's the difference between a potential tropical. I just hope they get the messaging right, Xavier, and it's not something that people don't bother with because it's not got a name.
Yeah, there's two things when it comes to this kind of stuff. The name, one of them, yes, we don't have a name for this. It's still just the number 2. And I feel like a lot of people have gotten a little bit impatient because this is the second time where it's taking quite a lot longer expected for a storm to get its name. Back when we had pre-Alex, obviously potential Cyclone 1, when it made landfall in Florida, everyone thought it was just going to fail and that it wasn't really going to do anything. But look what ended up happening. Alex did form, and then Alex ended up overperforming. It was only originally supposed to peak at 50, and it managed to get up to 70. So, needless to say, it may take a while, but eventually it does happen. Not everything is a PTC 10 or a PTC 17E. This is definitely going to be in the environment. It's got quite some time still to get that name. And the other thing I want to know is that this is expected to still be 70 miles an hour at landfall. That is just shy of hurricane strength. I know there's people who like to take the difference between tropical storm and hurricane as a completely different thing, but when it's 70 to 75 miles an hour, it's a 5-mile-an-hour wind difference, and there really isn't much of a difference between a 70-mile-an-hour tropical storm and a 75-mile-an-hour Category 1. So if you are watching us and you are in the path of the or if you're in the hurricane watch in general, you definitely want to be preparing as if this is going to be a Category 1 at landfall, just to be on the safer side of things. While the forecast has gone down slightly, you don't want to be taking any challenges, especially considering the fact that Central America has tended to not really be a well-suited place when it comes to hurricane landfalls, as we know in the past.
Yes, Chris Weather says, do you think that PTC2 will become a hurricane in the Atlantic? I know you've sort of just talked about that. Christian,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Hard for me to say really, because I don't really consider myself an expert on these kinds of subjects. I'm gonna say
Well, I
gonna
doubt you'll have
say-
witnessed a situation like this with a storm so far south in your fairly short tracking career, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. It's just, personally, I'm gonna say it's not gonna become a hurricane in the Atlantic. I'm just gonna put my faith in the NHC for this one. I know that sounds really, really, I don't know, but
No, people want your thoughts, so you may as well.
again, I'm not gonna. Once again, what have they got cone-wise? They've got tropical storm throughout the Atlantic, and then it's gonna cross over Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and then it's gonna get to hurricane status.
There's another comment there. Mr. Hurricane Boy says, what are the chances that 95L forms at 11? Forms into what is my real question, but I guess any upgrade. Are we seeing that on the horizon anywhere? It doesn't look like to me.
If there's any upgrade, in my opinion, it'll likely only be a tropical depression. I don't think it'll have time to become a tropical storm. But my reassurances I'm kind of suspicious about that because of my past experiences with a couple of these tropical depressions that were close to the coast, and then what do you know? They hit tropical storm status right as they get inland.
There's some late visible imagery and also radar, because it's within range there, showing that convective cloud top, but I'm really not seeing much else that can help us on that radar. No real sign of rotation as far as I can see. So, in all likelihood, unless we see a massive change, I do not think it will get any kind of upgrade at 11 o'clock. So, for those wondering about that, there you have it. Let's see what else we've got right now. Is this a rare chance that a name could be potentially kept in the Atlantic into the Pacific? Though it certainly could be. I mean, it's a rare occasion in the first place that a storm will be crossing over from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Am I right in saying... I can't think of whether there's been one since, says R. Douglas, apart from Otto, but honestly I don't really count that personally because it only just made it. But
I mean, there's
yeah,
storms that crossover suppressions, but they didn't exactly restrict the TS. Or they just died within like 6 hours of crossing over.
yeah, you see, I don't really want to count those ones.
Yeah, so if you don't want to count those, then they have pretty much nothing. Since
Wow, that's a long time.
Or says or not, yeah. It's definitely been a while. This is definitely not a normal storm, that's for sure. But to be fair, that is the 2020s for you.
Stop saying that, because it's gonna...
I'm not wrong.
It's gonna...
Oh dear.
You're setting up this year to fail in that sense.
Look, if this year can fail and it becomes completely below average, that would be the smart thing.
Well, no, I would call above average a fail for everyone involved, because we don't want to do too much tracking. It's annoying.
Oh, yeah.
That is not good. But
Trust me, I was enjoying it when there was only one storm active, and then all these AOIs and invest popped up, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, okay.
Well, welcome to June.
Has anyone got worldwide satellite up right now so we can look at all of the storms at once?
Theoretically, I could using one simple site. Let's see here.
I'll see what I can find.
There we go. All right, if you want to see like literally everything, I guess you can kind of see everything.
Let's. Why don't you go through everything in turn for us, Xavier, just so everyone knows what we've got active.
So I'll just go east to west. Pretty much, all the track lines are there. You can see 2L, which is pretty much inland over Venezuela right now. We'll enter the bay before making another landfall in Venezuela, and then, of course, re-emerging on the Caribbean. There is also 95L, a sunset approaching on that little translucent area that you see there, pretty much extending from Brownsville up into, what I want to say, southeast of Port Lavaca. You can see the formation area. So about a day left before it ends up making landfall. It is expected to curve northward soon, but given the fact it's not really producing much convection at the moment, I really don't see much in terms of improvement with this. In terms of the Eastern Pacific, you can see what's going on with 94E here. And trying to say that this has been an interesting invest has been pretty much the same thing, because this started out as a 10:30, and really the formation chances kept on being pretty much the same between the 2-day and 5 mark, as if the wording was that it was not going to last that long. And the models don't really have it becoming that strong of a storm. Yet that wording has never been explicitly mentioned by the NHC. They kept it the 2 days and 5 days always at the same throughout pretty much almost the entire AOI/Invest's life. So that has been a different trend there. And then you can see the remnants of Celia, although they're extremely bright because the sun is passing over pretty much. And then as you head westward, obviously nothing in the sea path. I should not be surprised anymore. And then, of course...
Take that, Hode fans.
And then the Western Pacific, you can see TD04W. Philippine name Caloy, but I think it's actually moved out of the Pegasa region, which means we really can't be calling it Caloy much longer. So with that
Well,
being,
people will know it as that until
yeah,
it gets
yeah,
its international
totally,
name.
yeah. The next international name, that is, it depends on which of these develops first. The next two, I believe, are Chava followed by Irie, so it's just a matter of which will become which.
Now, do you
Uh,
think the one on the right will form?
this one's been, that 98W has been a challenge because there are some that just have it taking forever, and by the time it does form, it's extra tropical, which doesn't exactly help forecasting this one. Um, it looks like it's trying to get attacked together. I mean, you can see a little bit of a spiral banding there, over here. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
been looking
beginning.
impressive in recent frames.
So I wonder if that trend holds, we could be looking at something starting to develop. What's going on with 4W is it looks like it's getting sheared on the northern end because you can see the exposed low-level circulation
Yep.
of 4W. So that's why we're not looking at something that it shouldn't be rapidly strengthening. That's why I think the GFS is going rather aggressive. But as I've noted in many of the TWVs I have done this month, the GFS has tended to go overly aggressive on practically every single storm, especially in the Pacific this year. So I wouldn't put too much money on that. Just use that as a worst case scenario, because I mean, we're talking about the fact that this is going to be a slow mover, and usually when you have slow moving storms and a storm that's got a large influence, that's when you start talking about upwelling. Upwelling never helps the system; it ends up actually hurting it, and limits its rate of strengthening. Eventually, you can have the land interaction with Hainan, and that's what's going to happen with that. So really the biggest takeaway with 4W is definitely going to be the rainfall, because I've seen the models for it, and
Yep.
it has the potential to stall as remnant low. So we could be talking 1 to 2 feet of rain across some areas, depending on the track it goes, which is not good. Thankfully, we're not looking as much of a population, but either way, it's still flooding. That's still going to be impacting summer regardless of its track. So, and while initially it was looking like Hong Kong was going to get the worst of it, it's now shifted to Hainan Peninsula, which is no stranger to tropical cyclones, of course. So hopefully, if you are watching us from the Hainan Peninsula, you are prepared for quite a bit of rain, pretty much even inland. If you're northeast of Hanoi, going into pretty much the states of Guangdong and Guangxi, be prepared for quite a bit of rain in the coming days.
Yeah, it could quite easily exceed 400 millimeters storm total. So it could be a massive flooding deal there. Dangerous. Part of what constitutes it code orange on our Ticos right now. We've had a lot of questions, most of them about PTC2. Sammy says, what do you think PTC2 will peak at? Well, I am inclined to think that NHC will be right with their forecast right now, and then it won't get to hurricane status. What's the likelihood of more tropical waves in the coming weeks coming out of West Africa? I've heard
100%.
unlikely due to dust from the Sahara.
See here, okay. So let me clear up a common misconception. Then, tropical waves will still come out. It's the Saharan dust that causes them not to develop them into tropical cyclones. It doesn't exactly stop tropical waves from coming out, and we have quite a bit ready to go. We have this one that's about to go. I think this one's definitely going to be a prominent tropical wave. Now, I haven't really seen any development off of that. But once we get into the second half of July, that's really when we start seeing more of those potential. Obviously, MDR storms aren't really common in June, so the fact that we really got a PTC out of one is definitely a bit interesting. I mean, I know we've had a few as of late, given the fact we had Elsa last June. But this isn't exactly a common picture to see, and usually anything that develops in the NDR in June usually is a common sign for an active season. As much as we hate to say that for the gazillionth time, it seems, we're still going to be looking at tropical waves. Yes, dust has been a thing, but that doesn't really prevent them from moving off into the Atlantic. It just prevents them from actually forming.
Let's just take a look at the wide shot of this whole area again as well. And it goes to show, once again, as we look there, the enormous size and influence of PTC2, which might hold it back. We also have Lucas with us right now, who is in Texas, so I think you're the closest person to an area of interest right now. Is that what you would like to discuss right now, or have you got other thoughts?
Yeah, that's honestly what I like to discuss, honestly. So, over the past couple of days, I have been keeping an eye on Invest. Is it 95L or 94?
5.
95.
Oh, so I have been keeping an eye on 95L, and even though it has a medium chance of formation, I have still been keeping an eye on it, and I am still gonna like, get all that heavy rain and such, but it may be a short-lived tropical depression as it moves slowly inland, but I honestly kind of don't think it's going to happen because of dry air and such, but overall I'm still keeping an eye on it, though.
I don't think it will develop either, Xavier. You want to know why? Ready?
You kind of broke out there, but I got what you're saying.
Oh. Why is everything breaking down?
Because according to the NHC latest advisory,
we are losing you, Nathan.
Yeah,
because
something happened. Everything broke down for a minute there. I was just asking why. I don't think that it will become a tropical cyclone, and you want to know why?
Sure.
Because the NAM 3 kilometer doesn't develop it.
Okay, yeah, the NAM 3 kilometer doesn't develop, and it probably won't.
I haven't heard of that, but okay.
For those who don't know,
you don't need
you don't need to know. It's basically CHP 6 levels of bad.
Oh,
It could be,
but still, I
worse.
honestly don't think it won't become a tropical depression as it moves inland. I think it's just going to bring just heavy rain to the coast and, inland Texas.
And as we look at the full wide view there across the Americas almost, you can see that it would help if my microphone was turned on there. What's going on here?
Do you guys honestly
turn itself off?
Do you guys honestly think that PTC2 will become a hurricane as it crosses into the East Pac? Because according to the NHC, it says it will become a hurricane next Monday.
Yeah,
Because
remember, next Monday is 5 days out, and it will be way beyond into the East Pacific by then.
Because to me, I'm honestly not sure if that's honestly going to happen.
Isn't there, sheer and dry air still over there?
Let me check real quick.
It's a good thing I have the conditions pulled up for it. It's a great what graphics can do. Anyways, if you want an idea of what everything is on the graph here you go. Obviously, you can kind of tell where it makes landfall in Nicaragua. It's after this lovely spike here, which is basically about two-ish days out from now. After that, it obviously weakens down due to, land interaction, and then we start seeing this intensification trend because as right now what we're looking at, sea surface temperatures are still going to be around 27 at the very least. You've also got relative humidity being pretty up there. Although I will note, I don't think it's probably going to get past Category 1 because while the conditions are favorable on the eastern side of the Eastern Pacific, they're not exactly favorable as you head westward. We already know that Bloss and Celia has kind of left some pretty cold temperatures, and judging by the general trajectory of this and where it would be going afterwards, based off the fact that models have been pretty consistent on this, it would kind of go over similar areas that have already been upwelled by Bloss and Celia. So
Yep.
I don't really see this being an exact replica of Cesar Douglas just for that reason. It's probably going to be a Cat 1 and no further, given the fact conditions will definitely start getting worse after day 5.
Interesting charts there.
Yep, it's pretty much from ships, which is usually used for the rapid identification probabilities, which you see here. Highest chance just being a 65 knot increase in 72 hours, which, given the fact it's got like less than that now, the highest chance is only 22. It's when you start seeing the values over 50 that you starting wanting to be concerned. And since we have none of that, I really wouldn't be too concerned about rapid
Let me
identification. for
just
this
look at wind shear. Wind shear is going to be very low throughout.
Oh yeah, wind shear is below 10 knots or 15 knots in general until it gets to the around day 5 point.
There's a little blob of 20 to 25 knots to the west of or actually no, to the northwest of where 94E is.
Oh yeah, that's why 94L hasn't really, or crap, 94E hasn't really. One of these days, I get my
no.
investigation. If you look,
Hey, there's too many, mate.
okay, so basically, if you look at the side of things, you can see the shear actually impacting 94E, given the fact you can see it's low of circulation, and it's been the case for days now. If you look at the satellite image, like for example, a few hours ago, you can still see it. But yesterday, when it was over here, you could kind of see it. I mean, it was barely producing convection. You had this little puff of convection, that was it. And if you go back the previous day, well, that you can literally see the full extent as to 94E's problem.
Literally, the center is
tiny
really
naked swirl. It was
dear.
literally a tiny naked. So 94E has basically been battling shear throughout its entire life. It's just trying to actually do something now that it's trying to overcome it.
Off
But yeah,
it goes, and there it is now, looking pretty decent.
yeah, it's not looking bad. That's why it's got a high chance now. Whether it becomes something, like I said, it's probably not going to be anything strong or anything. It's definitely not going to be
No,
something that lasts as it's definitely not going to last as long as any of the storms we've been dealing with, like Boss and Celia. Celia was already an anomaly, given the fact it was somehow the 5th longest lasting June storm on record for the Eastern Pacific.
It felt like it though. I was away for 5 days and it was still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The East Pacific right now is just full of anomalies. You had Agatha, which was, really strong.
Yeah. If you
strongest storm to make landfall in Mexico in the month of May.
Yeah, and
exactly.
The funniest thing is the fact that the strongest storm has been the shortest lived storm, and the weakest storm of the season has been the longest lived storm.
Yeah, very anomalous, just like the sea surface temperatures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the naked swirl of Bloss is still visible, even though it's,
I don't know. It's
Really?
definitely.
Is it?
Or actually, no, Celia, sorry.
Right.
I was about to say, Bloss has been dissipated for days now.
I don't know what is up with my mind.
Wait, has the NHC have not found another center low from PTC 2?
Not to my knowledge. A comment or a question there from Krakow asked about, since 4W is technology sometimes has good days and sometimes has extremely poor days, and it looks like we've had another poor day, as it would seem at the moment, for obscure reasons. And now it's shifted all of my windows onto another screen, so that is very helpful. So you get to watch this carnage in real time, or at least hear it. But I don't even understand why everything's broken down so badly. But at least we got the gist of the information in the first part of our stream, telling you about all of the current systems that are active. Potential Tropical Cyclone 2, Invest 95L, which is just off the coast of Texas. The other area of interest that's in the main development region, the Eastern Pacific area of interest 94E, which has a significant chance of development. Tropical Depression 4W, named Caloy by the Philippines, and maybe about to become a tropical storm. Real-time ATCF giving it 45 miles an hour. And Invest 98 W, which is further east of the Philippines and is looking decent as well. I'm still not able to show you anything, and there is absolutely nothing I can do about it. The computer is indicating that some of the programs that are still running are not actually running, and that I can't show you anything that's not running. I have no idea what's actually going on, but it's very strange. Let's see if we can get the satellite imagery up and running again. I'm still yet to get in touch with my team. I've no idea where they've gone. Perhaps that was the app that crashed everything. But right now you can see back in the Atlantic where we've got a look at that potential tropical cyclone. And I do think it is looking better as we continue to watch it unfold, with that potential center there that's starting to become more and more apparent. When you look at it in this format, you get the impression that it is starting to consolidate a potential center there. Certainly a good amount of deep convection starting to blow up in that important area. Just to make sure you're looking at the right thing that I'm looking at, that area there towards the center, I know it's white on white, it's hard to see, but I think that is where the action, well, certainly ought to be, and it will probably develop into a tropical storm fairly soon. Now it's lovely to see that the computer has removed the search function as well, which is great. Yeah, you have the best will in the world and the best broadcasting capabilities in the world to find yourself having technology that won't cooperate in the slightest. I do believe we are now back with the team who are
there we
here
go.
right
He's
now.
back. Hello?
Can you hear us?
We can hear you just well, and we're still looking at 2L. Where should we go to next?
We've spoken enough
4W?
about 2L. How about 4W?
Yeah, I was thinking the same
Oh
thing.
my goodness, Christian is showing up loads and loads of different things.
Yeah, welcome to the multi-model diagnostic plots that we use in storm updates. Everything right now is operational except for 98W. So, basically, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go to first?
The Texas one. Let's have a look at that.
I was honestly
Yeah,
thinking
that
about
would be
the same, too.
95. So, right. So, as you can clearly see, the models don't really take this system up to being mostly anything 40 knots, I believe. I don't know if I'm reading that correctly, although slightly above, say 45, 50, at least on the H1, but I'm not sure about that one. Deep layer shear is fluctuating, but generally is on the decline for this for 95. Sea surface temperatures are more or less slowly declining. It's not got long actually before it actually makes landfall on the Texas coastline, according to the track down here. Mid-level relative humidity is also slightly declining, but still is whilst it is declining, it still is a gradual decline, so it's not really going to be affecting the storm by a whole lot.
Probably the main concern for
that's
that system is the rain, like how much rain it's going to dump when it moves inland.
Wasn't it supposed to like dump like 7 to 5 inches of rain? If
5
I'm
to
correct.
7. Nathan?
Which
Your call
one's
on
that,
one?
sorry?
95.
No,
It won't be that much. It'll be probably about 4.
Because I can see on satellite that there's a lot more like stronger storms connected to 95, like to the east and the east of it. Like there's like big storms like pouring through like Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, and Florida and Alabama.
Well, that looks like it's part of the front, though.
Oops.
But to me, it looks like it's like actually connected to like 95.
Yeah, but
And it kind of looks like that 95 is starting to lose its cloudiness a bit.
well, it didn't have much to begin with.
Yeah, it definitely did. I've been tracking it anyway.
Yeah, it looks like it
But-
could get absorbed into the front.
It did have more cloudiness earlier today, though. But the shower activity and the thunderstorm activity wasn't like, there wasn't that much, honestly.
What else would you like to show us, Christian?
Well, we'll jump over to 94E for the moment.
And whilst
again,
you do that, I am now loading up the GFS wind that I'll show everyone in a few moments when it builds in.
Okay, so we'll start off here. This is the multimodal diagnostics for 94E. As you can clearly see, the intensity graph here in the top left. Let's just say H-Wolf is being an outlier yet again, taking the storm up to about 65 knots.
Actually,
once again,
come to think of it,
not sure how much I believe that, personally. Yeah.
Come to think of it, I'd like to know what the different models are saying for 2L after in the East Pack at the end of that
Ooh.
5-day period.
That is a good shout, but I'll come to that in a moment. So yeah, once again, intensities excluding the H-Wolf here because that's going way too high, if you ask me.
Why not?
Who knows? I don't know. We can only wait and find out. But once again, being a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of the models. Again, the second highest model takes it up to around, what is that, 50 knots? Again, not sure how much I believe that.
Well,
We
that's
can only
just the
really wait
decay
and find out.
ships.
That's the D ship. Again, moving on to deep layer shear, it's actually really low for the system. It's expected to increase in the coming days, especially from the start of July onwards. Sea surface temperatures are also really gonna start declining from July, and mid-level relative humidity again a gradual decline starting in again from July. Other than that, remaining relatively stable. And yeah, and once again, they expect this to continue on its west-northwest, track all the way up until not quite the Central Pacific, but getting there, quite close.
Samuel, what do you have for us right now?
I'm going to.
Please show us that JWC track. We've not seen that yet.
All right. Yeah. So, this is our other ongoing threat that we have in the wide world of tropics right now. This is the official JTWC cone out of the showing 4W's current track and wind field. It looks like impacts can be expected from from northeastern Vietnam, including the Hanoi metro as well as Hong Kong.
Might be a bit of a stretch, but it is within their enormous cone.
Yeah, and this is the impact, basically the impact map, impact cone, which the NHC does not have. So they do it a little differently here. So while they have, so JTWC sticks to one track, whereas the NHC actually uses a cone.
And they're going with a 50-knot peak. And I'd like to know from the viewers, and don't know if Nelson's listening, start up a poll, whether they might think 50 knots is too low for the forecast peak or not. So
I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any model data on 4W. It might still be listed as 97, so let me just double check. Because you know, the RAM website's a bit finicky sometimes. That only just came to my mind.
in the meantime, we had another question about what storms have seriously underperformed, such as Gonzalo 2020, which was expected to become a high-end Cat 2 and only stayed a TS. Any examples you guys can think of?
I'm still too new.
I had to think of recent ones. I know Renee was supposed to become a hurricane in 2020, and that didn't. Tobias 2010 was actually a category weaker than it was supposed to get to. Trying to think here.
Me too.
It's like it's so easy to think of storms that overperformed that it's kind of hard to think of storms that didn't. Oh, Oconee, there we go. Oconee, easily. Oconee.
Oh dear.
Oconee was
Oh,
forecast to
yeah.
get to 70 miles an hour, and instead, the CPHC kept on forecasting it such until all of a sudden they went straight from like 65 to straight up 30-mile-an-hour remnant lows because it's practically dead.
Oh
Yikes.
dear. Yikes, indeed.
Of course, there's the classic first ever Marcel Holos live stream, and Marcel said that Erica in 2015 was going to become a Category 4,
Oh dear.
and it was a tropical storm. I think that one was also overestimated by the officials. Can't remember by how much.
Anyways, I think I've found model data on 4W, except it's a little bit out of date because it's still listed down as 97W. Obviously, that is now no longer the case. It is 4W now.
Yeah.
So, again, let's take a look at this here.
Well, look
Ooh,
at that. You've got a split right
yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's a massive split. So the GFS takes us up to being around 85 knots. However, Dwarf, 65. So make of that what you will. We can only wait and see and find out that way. Once again, deep shears. Once again, a bit of a split. Obviously GFS taking this between around 10 to 20 knots. Someone's dog is barking in the background.
That's my dog. I deeply apologize.
That's fine. H-Wolf, again, going from around just under 5 knots of shear. Both models, however, agree on the sea surface temperatures being roughly around the same before declining as soon as July kicks in. And mid-level relative humidity is still very, very high for this system, so that's still pretty favorable. However, the GFS take this on a very, very gradual decline, whereas H-Wolf have it going down a little bit further, but still quite favorable for this system. And again, the track split here is quite what's the word? Quite noticeable. I'm sorry, that's the best word I can think of right now.
I've got the entire GFS run for the entire world, and this is the last thing we're going to do before going off to the outro. We'll do on this day and talk about the next names on the list without Xavier telling us what the next names are on the list.
Oh boy.
But first,
I want Xavier to do it, please. I want him to do it.
Do a poll.
Lord, hold on. Let me set this poll up.
I'm up for a poll. I bet everybody's gonna say yes anyway.
On the account, I can do the poll.
We'll see.
And to be honest,
they better
Nathan,
say no.
before we go to the outro, I honestly have some thoughts on 94W.
There isn't a 94W. 98?
98W?
Is the one in the South China Sea 98W? Is that what it's called?
No, that's just 4W.
Yeah, that's what I meant. 94W in the South
No,
China
it's just
Sea.
there's no 90 in it. It's just 4.
Oh, I thought it was still an invest because it got the name earlier.
Well, if it was an invest, it
Oh.
would still be 97.
Oh. Anyway, I
Oh.
honestly have some thoughts on tropical depression 4.
Interesting how you phrased that question.
Wait, what?
No, it's
No,
just...
don't go for that poll.
Couldn't-
Don't click on that option. There we go.
What's
Click on
kind of
that option
interesting
instead.
to me is that since I looked on the infrared satellite imagery, apologies that my camera is kind of blurry, but you can clearly see like right here, like where my mouse is, there's this like little line that is like basically like going around. I think this is the center of 4W, but there's this like line that's of convection that's like going around the center, and that's honestly kind of interesting to me, and I honestly wonder what that is. I don't know if it's like a blow up or something, but it's honestly fascinating to me. Do you guys have any idea what that is?
Might be a product of shear, I'm not sure. Anyway, we've got to go on to have a look at all of the GFS models. So here we are right now. Let's point a few things out at the opener here. This is current. Up there is what's left of Celia. There is 94E. Here, 95L. And here, obviously, PTC2 with those tropical storm force winds in green. What happens next? Watch them all move. Not much happens to most of them. You'll see that 95L just hovers around the coast of Texas, doesn't really develop. The PTC, there it is becoming a tropical storm quite clearly before it landfalls in Central America. Eastern Pacific there, tropical storm force winds from 94. Does it get a circulation? Looks like it will. And then we've got our PTC moving right through there and remaining as a strong tropical storm. There it is to hurricane status. GFS thinks in the longer range it might have a shot at category 2, and then it will hit the Baja California Peninsula. That's on the 9th of July though, which is way out. Elsewhere in the Atlantic, throughout the whole 16-day period, what do we have? Well, there's that other wave behind it. Small chances there, but you can still see something that could happen. And in fact, maybe it develops later on in the Gulf as a brief spin-up tropical cyclone, and another one behind it by the looks of it, but that's very long range. What else have we got? A whole lot of nothing in the Atlantic, which is great news for someone like me who doesn't like the Atlantic very much. And in the Eastern Pacific, where Ethan lives, even less will happen there. Nothing.
And the Central Pacific, where Xavier lives?
The Central Pacific, nothing at all, which is fantastic. Now, Western Pacific, that's interesting initialization there. Something out there, way out in the Western Pacific, although it ends up being nothing. So, those two storms that we're looking at right now, the first one, obviously 4W, there it is, as at least a Category 1, probably a Category 2 typhoon, moving through southern China. This is the GFS though, and then into Vietnam as its remnant. What does the other one do? It becomes a very broad and oddly shaped tropical cyclone, crosses Okinawa near typhoon strength and up towards the Korean Peninsula. After that, nothing for a time, or maybe that's a potential cyclone off Japan there that tries to form, but I don't think that's tropical. And then much later on in the run, this is the 12th of July, don't even think about it, but we'll show it just for the laughs.
Oh, it's a silly
Two
range.
massive typhoons forming there and reaching at least Category 3 status simultaneously.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be great fun to deal with.
Indian Ocean, it's worth noting that the Icon model earlier today wanted a tropical storm to form just off Oman, off the coast of Iran actually.
Oh,
GFS doesn't want that though, and doesn't want anything at all to do with the Indian Ocean, which is great. South Indian, there is something that it tries to form still in the southern Indian Ocean, but not really. Australian region, Nothing really, just a few deep extratropical cyclones at the higher latitudes. South Pacific, completely dead, as you'd expect. South Atlantic, we've got to check that every now and again, but nothing in the works there. And in the Mediterranean, because you've got to keep all your bases covered. Nothing there expected in the next 16 days. So, fantastic. I think that's a wrap for tonight on our Tropical Weather Bulletin. Anything from our team?
For me, all I gotta say is I just gotta keep an eye on this 95L. I mean, I know it's gonna be not gonna become a tropical depression, but I'm just gonna keep an eye on like the how much it's gonna dump when it moves inland. I mean, sure. We have storms going on in multiple states to the east, but I still have to keep an eye on how bad the rain's gonna get at my place.
Alright, we're going to finish up now. So, what happened on this day then? On June 30th, 1914, we had a Category 2 typhoon, 5W, which was about to cross just past Taiwan, affecting the Japanese islands, southern Ryukyu Islands on this day. Nothing else was active at that point in time in the world. It was just that solitary storm.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
So, when do we move on to the next part? I'm just waiting for the slide to change. Oh, there it goes.
Over the list.
Right, so the next name in the Atlantic Ocean is Bonnie. In the Eastern Pacific, the next name is Darby. Xavier.
And in the Central Pacific, while notifications may bother you with useless information, we'll keep bothering you about the fact that Hone won't form.
Oh,
Jesus Christ. In the Western Pacific, the next name might come soon. It's Chava. North Indian Ocean, Sitrang. 30 storms have formed so far this year in 2022. That might change. Should change very soon indeed. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, the names will roll over tomorrow. So you'll see a new list there. In the Australian region, the next name is Darian. In the South Pacific, it's Harley. Good night from us at Force 13 HQ and from our team.